Okay, so this video is probably going to be a little shorter. I came across something interesting. The name of the study is Fecal Microbiota Transplantation, a novel strategy for treating Alzheimer's disease. This one is out of China also, which is interesting because the study on FMT treatment of epilepsy is also out of China. And, I'd encourage anyone to look through the background of the people that do the study too. It's kind of interesting. I think the reason you see a lot of these studies coming out of China is because they don't have the same pharmaceutical industry we have in the United States. I don't know. I'm not an expert. Nothing I say should be taken as health advice. All of this is just my opinion, but this is a really interesting study. One of my grandmas had Alzheimer's, and my dad was always trying to read as much about it as he could, and really hoping they'd find a cure and whatnot. But this study's interesting because what they do is they analyze the gut bacteria of people with Alzheimer's and dementia, and they found that there was a really big difference between control group, normal healthy individuals, and Alzheimer's disease. And what they did in this study, this is kind of a meta-study. They actually analyzed a bunch of studies about the gut microbiome and Alzheimer's disease. And what they find in combing through all these studies, not only that there's a difference between a healthy person's gut and an Alzheimer's disease patient's gut, what they find is that if you transplant the healthy person's gut bacteria into the Alzheimer's patient's gut, through either route, and any way you do it, whether you take the pills or you get the colonoscopy type procedure, either way it works. Now, some people say that the oral route isn't quite as effective. There's reasons for that. But what they found was that, especially in mice, because they did this on people in terms of like treating Alzheimer's disease, and they saw a lot of clearing of amyloid beta plaques, which is crazy. I mean, if this was a pharmaceutical pill, everyone would be investing money in it, but you can't exactly patent these strains of bacteria, so it's hush-hush. This is interesting, though, because in mice what they did was they did the transplantation both ways. So they would take a mouse with, Alzheimer's disease, and implant, a healthy donor bacteria, and it would improve the cognitive functioning of that mouse. But they also did it the other way, where they took a healthy control mouse and implanted Alzheimer's disease dementia mouse gut bacteria. I actually think they got that bacteria from a human, but I would have to go back and check. But what they found was by implanting that bad bacteria, that bad gut bacteria, it induced the conditions of Alzheimer's dementia. Meaning, you got the buildup of amyloid beta plaques, you had cognitive decline, all that. So what that tells me is there's something about the gut, I've said this in all the studies that I've made videos about, there's something about the gut that is modulating the downstream biological mechanisms in the body. The gut is the most upstream. It's where you absorb everything. It's where, neurotransmitters are synthesized, or however you want to phrase it. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I think more people need to know about this. And I think people need to do a better job of making this more accessible, which is what I'm trying to do. Draw a line between, hey, this is consistently showing to be a treatment for chronic disease, and why aren't we researching this more? That's basically it in the study. They did find that by getting a healthy donor's gut bacteria transplanted into someone with Alzheimer's disease dementia, they saw a significant improvement in cognitive impairment. Now, they don't quantify it, they don't say like 80%, 90%, whatever, they don't say the word cured or anything like that, but it is definitive enough to say that this should be, a treatment that is used in conjunction with other treatments. It got me thinking about a lot of other things too, along the lines of I've also seen studies, and I'll do a whole separate video on this, but sauna is really beneficial for Alzheimer's disease because when you use a sauna, it stimulates something called heat shock proteins. Now, there's a lot of different heat shock proteins. I think there's, 10 different kinds that I'm aware of. There may be more, I don't really know. But like heat shock protein 70, 80, 90, I don't know, there's a lot. And what they found was if you do a sauna 3 times a week, you reduce your incidence of cardiac events by like a large percentage. I don't want to give numbers because I don't want to be incorrect, but they also found that Alzheimer's disease and dementia rates went down. So maybe there is an element of body temperature that affects the gut bacteria that kills off invasive bacteria or virus or phages. There's something going on there that's worth doing a deeper dive on. I'll do a video on that at some point too. But this is interesting. Alzheimer's disease, dementia, we've got an epidemic of it right now in this country, and I think there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in medical, what would you call it? Assisted living. I think there's a lot of money in that. And I think anytime you get insurance subsidizing stuff, there's an incentive for the prices to go up. But, that's a little bit beyond the scope of what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is gut bacteria effectively being a treatment for Alzheimer's disease dementia. Worth noting is how cold they keep it in nursing homes. That's kind of odd. I know they do that in hospitals too, and the explanation is to keep down bacterial growth. And I don't know, something about that strikes me as odd. Because those are institutions that benefit financially from people being unhealthy. Just something to think about there. Obviously working out or running or cardio, that'll get your core body temperature up a little higher. That can stimulate heat shock proteins, as far as I'm aware. So that's pretty interesting. What else? I think that's about all I've got for right now. But these amyloid beta plaques, apparently something about the gut bacteria modulates that. Now, one of the things they say in the study is it could be a reduction in inflammation. Maybe having the wrong gut bacteria inflames the gut, keeps you from absorbing the right nutrients, things along those lines. Sure, that's possible. They also mentioned that in people that have these disorders, they have a lower amount of butyrate-producing bacteria, or short-chain fatty acid bacteria. And that's interesting because those function as like slow down messengers for neurotransmitters. So there could be an element of neurons firing too much or in an uncontrolled manner and burning themselves out, so to speak. So there could be an element of that going on also. But who knows? Who knows? This is a really interesting study. I'll put the link up in the description. Anybody suffering with a chronic illness really ought to start looking into gut bacteria transplants. It's, I think it's going to be the future of medicine. It's not exactly something that they can patent, at least not the natural bacteria that would be found in a person's gut. So I think that's why we see a stifling of research on this front, because in the other video I made about Ford versus Dodge brothers, about how the Dodge brothers wanted to step on Henry Ford's company because his company was doing better, and they were investors, and they tried to claim that, the way he was running things wasn't to the stockholders' benefit. Really, it was just a way of, causing problems for the competition. But they tried to say that he's not paying out enough to us, he's trying to pay his employees too much. There's skeevy ways that companies will stifle competition, and it is not legal in the U.S. for a company to do something that would negatively impact its shareholders. So that's why you see a lot of these studies coming out of places like China, which I'm no communist. I'm not a big fan of the Chinese government at all. But they don't have the same profit motive pharmaceutical industry in their country. Again, I'm not a communist. I don't like the Chinese government. I'm very happy Trump won. Trump got the Right to Try Act, and that's huge. Nobody talks about it, and that's huge. The right to try, I think, gets totally overlooked, and I'd like to see more research done on this. Because similarly, you have all these chronic illnesses. Here's something else that I wanted to mention was, if someone has what they're calling long COVID, they really ought to be looking at people's gut bacteria. Maybe there is a type of bacteriophage that is consuming good bacteria. Maybe there's a type of bacteria that took up residence that shouldn't be there. Maybe there's a fungus that took up residence that shouldn't be there. That's irritating the gut lining. You're not able to absorb nutrients correctly. There's something going on with the gut, and there are studies out there, which I'll do videos on this at some point too, that show, long COVID or someone who's gotten damage from COVID, their gut bacteria is fundamentally different than a healthy control. I'd really like to see a little bit more research done on that. I don't know if we will, at least not in this country. Not now, but maybe at some point in the future. But, the other thing that I was kind of thinking about, along the line of, analyzing these different guts, you can do it. They make gut bacteria analysis tests that you can take. I'd recommend people go out and take them. The other thing I wanted to mention was, if you're looking into this, if you're kind of new to the gut bacteria arena and you're just starting to learn about it, one of the really interesting things worth knowing about is you can get probiotics at the store. You can buy things like kefir, sauerkraut, anything fermented, generally speaking. You can even get Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a type of yeast or a fungus. They give that to people oftentimes if they have gut issues. But what's interesting about this specifically is that all of the probiotics that you can buy currently are aerobic, meaning they can live in an oxygen-rich environment. What is interesting about the gut is not an oxygen-rich environment. Not under ideal circumstances anyways. But it's not an oxygen-rich environment, right? There might be gases in there, but it's not oxygen. So these gut bacteria transplants, personally I think that the oral route, the pills, you're getting bacteriophages that way. They've done studies on that. But you're not really getting the bacteria strains as reliably, at least in theory. Again, I'm not a doctor. Don't take anything I say as fact. Do your own research. But with gut bacteria transplants specifically, you're getting the anaerobic bacteria, the short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria, the butyrate producing bacteria, these slow-down modulating neurotransmitters, right? The reason that's interesting is because you can't get it. You can't go out and eat it. If you're born via C-section, you're often not getting that anaerobic bacteria. You might get colonized with Malcesium yeast, like bacteria and yeasts that you'd get from the skin, rather than the human gut microbiome that you would inherit from your mother. If you're not breastfed, you're not getting those anaerobic bacteria strains. There's really interesting studies on that. I'll do videos on that at some point too. But anaerobic bacteria strains are, I think, really the future of medicine, because you can get lactobacillus, like I said, from kefir, from cheese, whatever. Not hard to get those, but the anaerobic ones, there's a couple of places that you can go right now to get the anaerobic ones. Don't go trying to fix a problem if you don't have one, also, first of all. Nothing I'm trying to say is medical advice, but anaerobic bacteria strains, that's going to be where the treatments are. That's going to be the future of it. That's about all I've got now. I guess in line with that too, I would mention that a lot of the meat digesting bacteria strains are anaerobic bacteria strains, and in 60% of people with epilepsy, the keto diet basically just cures them. And after 2 years of being on the keto diet, they can go off the keto diet and have their epilepsy still be cured. That's interesting. That means there is a transient element in the gut that survives on carbohydrates. Well, I mean, you ever go to a brewery, you see those big vats, what do you think's brewing in there? It's yeast and mold fermenting. It's microbiology, man. It's worth learning about. Yeah, start reading about it. Start reading about it, start watching the videos. If you've made it this far in this video, I appreciate it. I'll keep uploading videos as much as I can. I've been kind of busy lately. Trump won, so we may actually get some cures at some point. I'm really excited about that. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope I'll have more videos for you soon. Thank you.